Felina me ke aloha ia kākou. Mahalo no ko nohana me. Mākua I ke iahiahi no ka Hānai Kia'i. Tonight we will be talking about eating traditions or kuʻuna in modern day Hawaii, referencing traditional practices as well as modern day innovations and understandings of ai as well. So this is a big subject. So I'm really honored to have some incredible guests tonight that are looked at within the Lahui as people who know their stuff when it comes to eating practices, whether it be in the ocean, in the kai, on the aina, feeding the communities and more, educating the communities about eating practices, food practices, gathering, harvesting, all those wonderful things. So I would like to start with our ho'olauna, our introductions, and we will begin with Kaina Mākua. Kaina Mākua, he's from Waimea, Kauai, and graduated from Waimea High School in 2002. He furthered his education and received a master's degree in education with a focus on Hawaiian language in 2009. Kaina is a kalo farmer in Makaweli Valley and owns Aloha Aina Poi Company. Woohoo! He is also the executive director of Kumano I Keala, nonprofit located in Waimea Valley. Kaina aims to reset the foundation of Kauai youth through mahi ai kalo, or growing taro. So aloha mai Kaina.
Aloha.
We also have Sharon Kaiulani Odom. Introducing Kaiulani Odom, she has been involved in the area of Native Hawaiian health for the past 25 years. She has developed educational media for print, television, and screen. Her specialty is in aikupele, nutrition from a cultural perspective. Her work involves communities, schools, and most importantly, families. In an effort to expand her perspective on health, she has been immersed in the study of ho'oponopono, la'au lapa'au, and lomi lomi. It is her goal to support Native Hawaiian communities to connect with the ike and practices passed down by their ancestors, fostering healthy lifestyles for future generations. She currently works for Kokua Kalihi Valley Health Center as the Roots Program Coordinator. Roots' goal is to bring community members together as a part of a larger social network, centering around food as a source of nourishment, identity, and connection. Project activities build bonds between community members as they cultivate food and medicine, cook together, share traditional practices for food preparation, and eat together in common spaces. This sounds amazing. I need to come visit you guys. The concept of malama'aina, to care for the land, refers to a reciprocal relationship for the land to supply food and sustenance. We must in turn take care of it. Teaching the community about the culture and wisdom of their ancestors provides a natural segue into education on nutrition and healthy living. Appreciating your heritage is a healthy practice in itself. Through honoring your culture, our culture, and ancestors, we honor ourselves. So aloha e ka'iu.
Aloha, mahalo for having me.
Yes, of course. I'm so excited to talk story with you guys. And lastly, we have my kane, my husband. Hano Naehu is a hunter, a fisherman, paniolo, kia'i loko, a fish pond guardian, and farmer, born and raised on the island of Molokai. As an advocate for food sovereignty in Hawaii for the past 2 decades, he has dedicated himself to the kuleana of restoring, maintaining, and educating others on the importance of fish ponds and their ability to feed Hawaii's people. As a kia'i loko, or a fish pond guardian, he was also at the front line of the fight to prevent the patenting of kalo in order for it to not be genetically modified and engineered. Along with Kaina Mākua, they locked down the medical building with locks and chains until they agreed to sit down and talk about dropping that patent. Awesome job, guys. Mahalo. Since 2003, he has traveled throughout Hawaii and the world to network and represent as a delegate on a global level in an effort to establish ocean reserves that are protected from international commercial fishing and longline fishing. Together with myself, his wife, We have helped to lead discussions and ultimately lobby and help to create policy to protect and establish protected ocean reserves for Papa, Hana Mokuakea, Rapa Nui, Aotearoa, and the Austral Islands. So aloha mai, hano hano.
I swear to tell my truth, nothing but my truth. So help me, kia pua.
Mahalo, mahalo.
Amen.
That's what we want tonight, just the truth, our truth, yeah. So mahalo for being willing to share tonight. I'm going to start out with the first ninau, and we'll start with Kaina. And our first ninau is very broad, and we know the word ai. Like I thought about, if I'm going to translate the title of tonight, the eating traditions title, it would be probably Kuʻuna ai. Kuʻuna mean a traditional practice, ai meaning to eat. And I thought, whoa, wait, ai has such a broad spectrum of mana'o, right? It means to consume, it means to rule, it means to consummate, it means to eat, it means food, it means so many different things, ai. But if we're looking at the word ai from a food perspective, as in me ai, what does that mean to you, Kaina? What does ai mean to you?
Yeah, and that's some of the things that I used to think about, and I still think about. For me, it would be just feeding. I think I know you mentioned like ai as in food, but we can take this to plenty different levels.
Talk about whatever you like.
Yeah, you can. But for me, it's feeding, because with feeding, at least from what we've seen by feeding our kupuna in our community, that really changes their internally. It brings back, if you look back being a kid, for a lot of these kupuna, they haven't seen that in years. They haven't felt the child-like emotions that really make us happy, laughter, joking. A lot of them, when they eat certain ai that we have provided to them in the past and recently, they've began to recollect the smells of the valley, the water, different plants, certain areas. But all of those little senses that we utilize now, that we've forgotten probably because of the lifestyle we live, they've remembered that. So that's a different ai, that's a different level of what ai can do for us. And for what I haven't, noticed was when we feed them, things like ulu, lauai, uala, all this Hawaiʻi standardized meai or ai, they start to recollect the fun times as kids. So they're not only eating healthier, but they also, bringing back those emotions from being one kid and all those happy times. And in my mind, or at least the way I believe, is healthier for them, on all levels. And so that's probably what ai means to me.
Oh, that's such a beautiful answer, Kaina. I really didn't expect that, because as soon as you said that, you went whoop, and I went right back to my childhood and these smells and the preparation, and when it was having the smell of the inamona and the making of the limu with the poke and the pa'akai, even the smell of it. Wow, that's beautiful. Mahalo. Ka'iu, do you want to add to that? What does ai mean to you?
For me, when I think of ai, it's about all the different connections that it makes for us. And so when we, and I often say this in my programming, but when we think of, what does food connects us to? It connects us to our culture, our kupuna, our environment, our stories, our next door neighbor. And when all of these connections become broken, we become unhealthy as a people. And so, our program is focused a lot around just making those connections with food. And I'm trained as a dietitian, so I've gone through the training and I understand the science part of it. And, if you were to ask me when I was in school, it was carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, minerals. That's what it's composed of. But when we look at it from a cultural and indigenous perspective, it's really what connects us to all of these things. things. And so I was listening to Koa Heva Heva, who's doing amazing things in Maui. And he said something last night. He says, you know, it's not like we were always taught you are what you eat. But in this day and age, it's you are what they eat. And so because of everything that's going on with our food system, it's not just about what we're choosing, it's how is your food grown and what are your animals eating that you're eating, and, you know, pesticides, all this kind of stuff. And so this broad idea of we're all connected. We're connected to what we eat, that's connected to what they eat, that's connected to what's put in the ground. And so what are all these connections? And I think culturally too, that food connects us, you know, we all have fond memories, like you were saying, the inamona or the smell of limo or all of these kind of things, those connections to the culture, to who we are, and making our kids proud. I mean, you're really not proud when you're going through Jack in the Box. Well, I hope not. And buying a, you know, jumbo jack, but when you're making your own haupia from scratch and grating the coconut and, you know, the whole process that takes, you come out with something that you're so proud of. You know, when our kids programs, when they're making their food, they're so proud of what they're doing, and when they get to share with the rest of the family, it connects all of them. And I think for me too, that connects us to our spirituality, and that's not anything you see in almost any other culture. You know, Hawaii and Pacific, you know, we were very strong in that our kinolau forms of different akua, and that when we ate those foods, we got those essence, we embodied, you know, the things that we admired out of that. And so we treated our food in a really different way from, you know, when we're gathering or when we're fishing or when we're preparing and when we're feeding, you know, even the saying of, you know, or covering the poi bowl on the table when we're talking business or we're, you know, anything negative, we don't want that getting in, because it connects us who we are to haloa. And so spirituality and food is something that's really important that we lose sight of in, you know, today's modern day and age. And just stories, you know, it connects us to all of our stories, and whether it's family stories, whether it's our mo'olelo from, you know, that's being passed down. I often see in today's day and age that those stories can tend to be forgotten in our cultures, and especially you know, some of the connections, especially to spirituality, to our akua, that they're not always being told, and it's important that we remember all of those things, that culturally who we are, where we come from. And then when we think about our environment, you know, our food connects us to our environment, because if we don't take care of our environment, then we're not going to have the healthiest food. And so when I'm eating the food, I'm always thinking about the environment and where it came from and who grew it and what was put into the land. And it connects us to our generations. You know, we do a pregnancy class, and when we do our aipono class, one of the things that I always tell the families is that as the kane, they carry the sperm, and as a wahine, they carry the eggs of all of their future generations. They hold inside of them all of their generations from here into time out. And so everything they eat on a daily basis nourishes the cells of their future generation. Everything they say on a daily basis is heard, not just by them, but by some of their great grandchildren that they'll never meet. And any of their actions that they do is felt by future generations. So the things we do, the things we say, and the things we eat are feeding the physical and spiritual forms of all of our future. And so if we think about food in that term and not just something that's here today, then we have to take care of our land and our people and our food for generations to come.
Amazing. Beautiful. Mahalo for that. You know, I kind of made that reference to the connection of the emotion. So it's like, it's feeding this emotional health, it's feeding the spiritual health, and it's feeding the physical health, and it's doing all those wonderful things. Hano, you want to add anything to that? What does ai mean to you?
Well, first, Kaina and Kai'u, everything you guys said, it was so beautifully articulated. That was awesome. That was amazing. And I agree completely with everything you guys are saying. I think the angle that I can come from is I look at like the Force in Star Wars, where it's everything around us, living and non, that give us life. And every part of it is so precious that it should be fought for, protected. It should be made so important that the fish in the ocean need to be protected, have safe places. The aina and the watershed, the Vawakua, needs to be protected to the highest priority. You know, the shorelines, from the shorelines to the lo'is, to the loko'i'a, to the reef, to the heavens, to the planet core. All of this interconnectivity, to me, is I. And if that is what gives us life, then we need to invest, we need to protest, protect, we need to do way more for everything that was given to us, not by our own hands, but by Keakua and the generations that came before. Again, I always like to say that our future should look more like our past than our present. Not all cultures can say that 1000% positivity and validate it. But I believe completely in my heart, soul, spirit, that in our Hawaiian Kanaka culture, when you look back in time, there were times in this place where we could feed millions with no input from outside. Nothing. And now we've been so disconnected that we disoriented. Like sometimes we think we like tech because we're Hawaiian, and that's the wrong time. That's the kind of times where like sometimes we gotta jump in. Because if you're gonna practice, get the pono way for practice, you know? And the only way for no is for go back to the history, go back to the people that doing pono, and then start to realize what surrounds that right. Because all of these rights have responsibility. And we've neglected the responsibility part for so long that we in a deficit. And if we like really subsist off our land, we first gotta go malama a little bit. Because right now, I can promise you, from my upbringing as on Paniolo to my work for the past 2 decades as on Kiaʻi Loco, to me going into the hills for Han and all of the above, our aina is suffering. Our aina is in bad shape. We need to put in way more than we think even possible so that our kids can have something closer to what our kupuna had.
Beautiful, beautiful. You guys all have like the same perspectives, but different. And it's just a beautiful thing. Like you guys all kind of finish each other's sentences. I'm loving this. Okay, so now that we've all kind of shared what we feel about the word, the idea of I should say, not just word, it's bigger than that, right? I want to go a little bit deeper into your personal stories, if you guys are okay with that. And I wanted to ask you, we're going to start with Ka'iu. What were the primary cultures and ethnicities in your ohana growing up? And how did they play a role in your ohana's ku'una or your eating practices, whether Hawaiian or whatever, you know? Let's hear it. I want to hear your story.
I think I'm, like a lot of people with a lot of mixed up. I'm Hawaiian, Chinese, German, Danish, Portuguese, and they say that there's a little French over that fence over there someplace. So, so we had all of these different, but it was my Chinese grandfather. My father's from Kapa'a, Kauai, and my mother's from Hunaka'a on the Hawaii island. And my grandfather was pure Chinese, and he could cook. He was where I believe that my interest in food has come down from. from. But, you know, I remember he had a nice kitchen in the house, but what he wanted to cook was in this little galley that he had built downstairs that had his wok and a plug, and you know, it wasn't like you could just walk into it, and that was his little space. But he would make steaks out of in buckets outside, and he would be the one that would go out. And I remember pictures of him looking for, he had those glass things that they would go out and look for hay in, or my dad remembers telling stories of the hukilau down at Wailua River, where the whole community would get together. And we were laughing the other night because we were talking about the frog legs. Like, we had frog legs when I was young, and you know, everyone says it tastes like chicken. Of course I don't remember, but I remember that we ate frog legs. And I was asking my dad about that, and he was like, yeah, they would go out by the golf course and they would catch the frogs in a bag and bring them home. But my grandfather, you know, he could really cook. And so for that part, I just remember all of that food better than any Chinese restaurant. I could whip up a 10-course meal in no time. But the other part of that was really just always gathering as families to do things. You know, whenever someone came to visit, or we went to another island and everybody came together, and just, you know, the memories around food were fun and laughter. And then I also remember when we were young, going to McDonald's was a special treat because my mother cooked dinner every single night. There was always a main dish, and there was vegetables, and, you know, we had, you know, fruits and stuff like that. But to go to McDonald's was like a special treat, and we only did it once in a while. And, you know, nowadays people are eating McDonald's, you know, how many times a week, or going out for fast food how many times a week. And so I just remembered it was a really different time with food growing up, and that what is normal today was not normal back then. And then, so Hānai, I totally agree with you. Like, you know, going back to our past, you know, even stepping back one generation, you know, we'd like to go back many more, but just one generation ago, the eating was so different than how it is today. But I do remember, and then, you know, when you got together with families, the time that you take to talk when you're making the meals for families. You know, we cater a lot of our important events nowadays, where, you know, before, families come together, they spend hours and hours together, and you learn from, you know, the uncle that made the best squid luau, or when you were old enough to do this, you got to do that. And so, but you just spent a lot of time with family and doing all of that, and we're losing some of that too, which I wish that we could bring back more of that.
Oh, mahalo for sharing that. Yeah, you know, I think that's one beautiful thing about Molokai that I can say, you know, like when we got married, I was stressing out because, you know, I came from Lahaina and he's like, I'm like, we got to do this. Don't worry, Uncle get the pig. Auntie gonna take care of the black crab, you know, so-and-so gonna do this. And I was like, no, you know, listen. He goes, no worry. And sure enough, you know, I had my bridesmaids cleaning black crab, you know, that's just how, and it was the most beautiful experience. We fed 1,000 people that night. And 90% of the food came from Molokai. And that was one of the most beautiful things I ever experienced because, you know, coming from Ewa Beach, Lahaina, my adult life, and then here, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was still possible. And it can be. But there's many different things we need to change about the ways that we gather, and we'll get to that as well. So mahalo for that, Kai'u. I wanted to move on to Hano. What were the primary cultures and ethnicities in your ohana, and how did they play a role in your eating traditions?
Okay, so the obvious one is Hawaiian. And on Molokai, the Hawaiian is whatever activity you're doing, that's what you're going to be eating for the next couple of days. Like if we're going fishing, you know, feast upon arrival, we're eating that. If we stay in a mountain and we're getting pipi, we're going to have pipi for the whole week, maybe the whole month, you know. And same thing if we go to the lo'i. All of these activities, like they all give you one hint of what to come, you know. And on Molokai, that was the upbringing. I had one Okinawan, pure Okinawan grandma. So she always had on teriyaki twist on everything too. And that twist live inside me to this day. I love teriyaki. My grandma. So you had this Okinawan that was cooking Hawaiian food, making Hawaiian food, and also having a big American food influence.
Yeah.
I would like to I believe, I was born in 77, graduated in 95. But like Antikayo said, like right before us, everything was family get-togethers, you know, everything. And was like, you cook what you catch, that's what you eat. And then we started getting heavy into the canned food. You know, one of my favorite meals was spaghetti, canned spaghetti with Spam. Oh, the thing is not good for you. The thing is not good for you. But man, that thing was ono. Oh, the thing was ono. Canned food when almost like dominate our upbringing. And this is a Molokai. Like where you could still get the fish, you still could get the deer, you still could get the peepee, you still could get everything. But oh man, in my younger days, what I remember was when they had to cook for plenty, we had this transition. Before was all fish, pig, cow, and all of a sudden now had these quicker meals, you know, that was done with canned food, and they would take us so off track. I saw plenty of my mākua get real sick, you know, and it wasn't the mākua that was dying early, wasn't the ones that was smoking pakalolo or drinking alcohol. Sometimes it was the ones that just had on very bad diet, you know? So again, to me, all of these factors at different times of my life has led me to one journey back to what was the optimal way. And like Kaio said, and kind of was saying that when you go optimal, that's back to our kupuna. Before we remember, you know, the plants, the animals that come from this place, come from where we live. No need come from any place out, right from here. And you should go make all your own food. That way you live healthy, you live solid, you look like kind of mākua.
You know, I have to let you guys know before we open the doors to all of you guys, kind of mākua, you know, he always in the lo'i, he's always in the towel patches, so he doesn't really have a need for a lot of clothes.
Babe, I'm gonna take off my shirt right now.
Ohana took off his shirt. He was like, I want to match you. These guys are like buddies for days. So anyway, Kaina, that brings me to you. What were the primary cultures and ethnicities in your ohana, and how did it play a role in Kuʻuna?
You know, I part Hawaiian. I get some Japanese and some Filipino. So growing up, I just remember eating. So going back to the optimal, yeah, what Hano was saying. I recall being, so after Iniki, like pretty much the biggest hurricane that it hit Hawaii, well, Kauai, when it hit us, and I recall the day after, we was living on the beach, and I was like, oh, ocean all day, every day. My father came from Keaukaha, my mom from Kauai. So my father, he was on Lavaia, he was on shoreline fisherman his whole life. But he used to tell me stories about how he would wake up 3 in the morning, go with my tutu man, like 10 miles, holo, come back, whatever they'd catch, they would sell to the community, yeah, because they had to pay for rent, and that's how they would live, you know. And so after Hurricane Iniki, that's what we was doing. We wasn't selling our food, but we was forced to go and, you know, holo every morning if we get food. But that was like, I still can smell the pakai from the kai. I still can smell a'ama. You know, we still do all of these things. And as I thankful, because you're right. We should be going back to what was and bring it to what is. But I do recall eating MREs at the same time. And if you don't know what MRE is, you're probably super young. But MREs was just like this little packs of canned goods. And the military would always bring them. But that's what we had for eat too. And maybe like once or twice a week, they would come around and deliver MREs. So like the other days, we would have to go catch our own fish, get our own OPE, AMA, whatever we had to do to survive. We was in survival mode. And it was luckily, you know, we used to do that before Iniki hit. But, you know, getting older, my mom would remarry and we started eating Filipino food from my Hawaiian stepdad that was raised by Filipinos. So blood meat, all here, right here. Blood meat all day. I can eat blood meat all day, bro. But you know, all the Filipino delicacies, we was lucky to have him around to do that and cook us that kind of food. But with plenty of dishes that are Filipino, bro, you eat pretty healthy. Those buggers eat healthy. I mean, yeah, you get the blood meat. That might be the only one, but a lot of the dishes get plenty of vegetables, you know. And I never used to like vegetables because we had MREs after Iniki. So we had to learn how to eat vegetables probably around 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And I recall like having a hard time eating the vegetables. But now it's very easy. But to instill it in your kids is brutal. Those buggers the same way. They get the same mentality as their father from when I was young. But you know, that was kind of how we was growing up. That was mine.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You know, I know what MREs are. We had all, yeah, we had all those things, you know, the government cheese, all those kind of things, to the dry milk, you know, we didn't grow up rich. So I grew up on a lot of Simon, all that kind of stuff, feeding myself after school. But all these I can relate to all of you in some way. I'm really enjoying this. Okay, Nino Ekolu. So we are gonna start with Owai Kohope Hano Hano Owai Kamoa. You're gonna be our first one. What sparked your calling to Awamo or carry this kuleana of strengthening our lahui Hawaiʻi through ai?
That's an easy one for me. That's aloha aina. Again, growing up, Paniolo, going fishing with my papa, with my family, hunting, doing all of that was like building of the skill set, but not knowing what all of it meant until I became a Kiaʻi loco and started learning from Akawata Ridi. And then him specifically saying like, aloha aina means something to him, but I cannot have his definition of them. I gotta have my own definition. I gotta have my own connection, my own, what it means to me. And when I made the connection that as on Paniolo, as on Kiaʻi Loko, as on Hunter, as on fisherman, as anything in this web of life, when you aloha all of it, then you start to see the bigger picture. You know, you start to see how important, to me, the ahupua'a come to my mind. It's screaming in my head right now. Ahupua'a, 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 because our kupuna had them. And if you take care of your ahupua'a, you're going to find everything you need for live in your own space, your own ahupua'a. Through aloha aina, you learn about, the GMO patents. and how they wanted to manipulate life forms. And just so happened they go pick on our older brother. Aole, cancel that order. Kind of mākua, we they cancel that order. This is a simple one. No, and because you're trying to do that too haloa, now I can see this heinous act you're doing to all life. Aole. You know, and that made, so aloha aina, being able to see how everything connected from right beneath our feet to above our head and around the whole planet to the whole galaxy. You know, so aloha aina for me, that's what led me on this journey to see how much things that I love that give us life, I can try and protect. I can try and stand up for. I can speak for because they no can speak.
Mahalo, mahalo no ko mauli. I think our next one would be Oi. I'm trying to think who came after. Oi Kaina. What sparked your calling to Awamo, the kuleana of strengthening our lahui through ai?
Get a couple of things. I think I can piggyback on Hano though. You know, like growing up, it was some of the things that I seen too. Well, not some, but like a lot of it was aloha aina. And then I was fortunate to be one of the workers at Kaneoai back in 2004. And that's actually when I met Hano. But I remember seeing and listening to Anakala Eri Ka'anana. But he was always involved with what Kaneoai was trying to do. And just, you know, his presence in every conversations. And he always had this saying that everybody who'd been around him know the saying, and was he aha kamua, he aha kahope. Like, okay, right on. You get this, you made this. Let's say you build on hale. Now what? Hugon malama that. You know, and we talk about how, or Hana was referring to how people just, you know, we go out of our moku, out of our ahupua, and we trying to gather food. I think everybody gotta hone in on their own for now. Once we can really malamai, because kuleana is nuts. Aloha aina and that kuleana is really nuts, bro. And if you're just trying to do your ahupua, it's gonna be on heavy awamo. That baga is kaumaha. And like Anakala, he would do anything for that awamo. No matter how bad and how heavy the awamo was, like getting in fist fights and stuff like that. I hear stories about him doing stuff like that. That's how I feel. You know, it's the same way I feel when it comes to aloha aina and our ai in Hawaii. I'm gonna do anything for our ahupua before I leave and go help other people or do whatever I got outside. But that little, you know, the little time and space in our little mo'okuauhau of fighting for haloa definitely sparked what I'm doing now. With so many events prior to that and now, and prior to where we are now, but that was the game changer for me all day.
I think it was a game changer for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I mahalo you guys. I mahalo everybody involved for, you know, making that happen and making the patent be dropped, you know. That was scary. That was scary stuff. And so for those of you tuning in and you're like, oh, who's haloa and so forth, real quickly, I wanted to touch on the you know, they wanted to genetically modify a certain variety of kalo to do genetic, you know, modifications to build up resistance against threats against kalo, different diseases and so forth. And, you know, it was happening through the medical school at UH Manoa. And kaina hano, halau kumana, like halau lokahi, like everybody showed up and marched down and locked the kaina hano peleke ma, yeah, Uncle Skippy Wane locked the doors of the medical building while all the important people were in there and said, you know, we need to talk. We really need to talk because you are threatening our ancestor Haloa being the first kalo plant. The second, his brother, his younger brother being the first kanaka of, you know, human. So we refer to the kalo as our elder sibling. So mahalo nui no ke la. I think.
Kalaniwa and Davis Price.
Oh yeah, Kalaniwa and Davis Price. I knew I was missing some names. There you go. Yes, and Uncle Walt. Uncle Walt, yeah. Auntie Loretta's right by the side. My ka'iloa. Ka'iu, can you add to that? What sparked your calling to Awamala Kuleana of strengthening our lahui?
Sure, and I was at those rallies, and I was actually under this, you know, what was hard for me was I was under food science and human nutrition who had the researchers in that department. And so, you know, very much at odds in which my department, but I think, you know, and that's it, that's part of my schooling and some of the drive that led me, you know, I was a language major and I took a nutrition class just to meet one of my electives. And I really just fell in love with it and I wanted to do more. And then I saw that, well, in order to become a dietitian, I had to take all these sciences. I wasn't good at science in high school, but, you know, had a newfound love for microbiology and organic chemistry. And I just really fell into all of that. But while I was in there, you know, there was really no culture. There's no culture. There was nobody that looked like me that was teaching inside there, that understood the culture, that community nutrition was taught by someone who was not even from here. And that went on for many, many years, even after I left. I remember one of my friends, she had read something and she came to me one day, we were still an undergraduate at that time. And she's like, I read something that says Hawaiian food has mana. What is that? That's so silly. And I'm like thinking to myself, that's not silly at all. That's like an essence of our food. But so there was just this real disconnect as I was going through. The other thing that happened is that there's all this funding for nurses and doctors to go through school, but as a Native Hawaiian dietitian, and there were only a very few of them at that time, and still today there's more, but it's still, you know, not a profession that you get money to go into, yet it's so important for what we do. I don't know if most people know, but most doctors, and especially here in Hawaii, they don't even have to have one nutrition class to graduate. And so they're not trained in nutrition at all. They have many pharmaceutical classes. And so when they treat with pharmaceuticals and not with food because they just don't know any better. And so the more I learned, the more I realized how important it was, you know, and as an undergraduate, I spent my weekends out at Waianae Comp working for the program. And I went into the WIC program and I opened up the WIC manual, and the WIC manual was said something like, do not let moms chew their food and give it to the babies because, you know, it's unsanitary and this and that. And I'm like, we have an alono'ea that says kui kamana, that's, we understand the essence that's being passed down with that. And, you know, even the chewing of food, so you let it drip into either the elderly or the young child's mouth, like that's a practice of ours. And so really just the disconnect all along. And so I just really gravitated towards like, I want to do something about this, and food's going to be around for a long time, and I want to work within our community, within our lahui. And then I had to do a paper, and you could do whatever you wanted, and I wanted to do something around the health of Native Hawaiians and food. And, you know, this was a long time ago, you know, I graduated a long time ago, but there was nothing written. There was nothing in our books. There was, you know, Molokai diet program was just going on there, you know, and all of this stuff. And so Claire Hughes at that time talked to one of my professors, and I was allowed to do oral interviews at that time with Emma Luli, Dr. Leloy, all these Native Hawaiian physicians or people that were in there. And but yet nothing was written on food. There were no references at all. And so even more, you know, I wanted to keep doing that and just really recognizing that as the years have gone on, that we do all of these great programs, and we're very immersed in our culture and even our marches and our protocol, but we're not in our food. And so we're doing all of these programs and we're feeding our families chili and chips, or we're, serving them juice and cookies. And we had to make that connection that eating healthy, being healthy, having healthy food should be integral to all of our programming. And, so that has been something that spurred me along the way. Of course, I've learned many things along the way. When I was a young dietitian, it was like, don't eat Spam, it's bad for you, there's nitrite, blah, 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 blah. Of course, no one's gonna listen to me, right? And so then I'm like, okay, well, if you're gonna eat Spam, let's mix it with cabbage. It's a cruciferous vegetable, and some brown rice for some fiber. And then you can have orange juice for vitamin C and carrots for vitamin A, and those are protective in your body. Till today, where we make our own Spam. If I buy the pork from out from Two Ladies Farms out in Waiʻanae, and we use pa'akai and a little bit of garlic and stuff, we can make our own Spam, and it tastes really good. But it's really just the evolution of listening to our community and the changes in our community. But I still don't think, and I'm so, I just love what both Kaina and Hano are saying, because the more we understand that food is connected through all of our programs and all of the things we do, and it's not just isolated into nutrition, and that it has to be integrated into our programs and our daily life. We cannot do all these great immersion schools and still feed our kids, bologna sandwich or whatever it is. Like, it needs to be an integrated part of all that we do. And that's what has been, something that has continued to be what I want to work on for the health of the lahui in the future.
Incredible work you're doing. I always watch, your posts and your shares, and I always wish that I could be a part of it. But I have to tell you that you really inspired me to become a fermenter from a long time ago, because Ka'iu's mo'opuna and my daughter were very, very close friends at Kulakaiapuni on Moloka'i. And so it's been a while, that I've been watching Ka'iu do her magic over there, and she inspired me to start fermenting, and I haven't stopped. And it changed my life. It changed my life. It really did.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Happy to hear that. Yeah, happy to hear that.
Yeah. So we're on our last Nino. I usually schedule the roundtables to go an hour and a half, but that's just to give us extra room. But we do have time, so you guys don't have to cut your answers short, because it's kind of a big question, this last one. And we're going to start with Kaina. O'oi. Throughout your years of working with ʻAʻi and Hawaii's communities, were there any moments that were very eye-opening or impactful on you, and why? I know you shared about some of these pivotal moments, but was there anything that was like, oh, I guess really just kind of either an aha or kind of rocked your world type of thing? Anything happen like that to you?
Sorry.
No, the big question. Whether it was even with raising your own kalo and your lo'i, were there things, storm systems that might have came through and just was like, holy moly, this is not what I thought it would be, or something that just really rocked your world and your,
yeah, I can say like a couple of things, but so I moved home from being at Manoa and Oahu and teaching Hawaiian language. So I moved home like 2010, and I started teaching here on Kauai, Hawaiian immersion, 10 to 14. It's like 4 solid years. But when I first moved home, my dad guys get this farm that we kind of caretake now, and was all overgrown. But I knew that we needed food, and I wanted for farm kalo. And so I recall just having like 60-foot trees, opuma trees. It's like this thorny tree. pretty much everywhere on this 10 acres, maybe a couple of patches never have, but everything was like super overgrown. And I remember being in the awai, we just was starting to clean the awai, and I had a couple uncles pass us. They're from Makaweli, and they go, and me, I love challenges. I don't know that, but these uncles, they drive up to us and had me and my three younger siblings cleaning the awai, because it was all like 8-foot guinea grass by hand. So we're going by hand, and they look at us and they go, hey, hard work, farming kalo. You guys sure you guys like farm kalo? And the competitive side of Kaina was like, yeah, I think we're gonna be good. Inside I was flaming, bro. I was flaming. I was like, what? But I never understand what they was saying at the time, because now that I look back, and when they said that, they must have so many young people go in and fail, and they became used to the kids coming in, trying, and just never come back. They go strong 3 months and they're done. And for me, like Kuleana, when I talk about Kuleana and Aloha Aina, for real, we get 22 acres of farmland that we have to open up with 60-foot trees that is worse than Kiaʻi. And the first 10 acres, we did them by hand. We cut those bad boys down and pound. So we was pounding for like one solid 8 years by hand. Like the first year, I remember tilling, we don't shovel, 10,000 square feet of lo'i. Tilling, we don't shovel. You got to get them at least the length of the shovel. That's how deep you got to get them, the lepo. So I still doing this, and me, 10 to 14, I wake up every morning, 5:30, make breakfast for the family. Boom, I'm out. I got to travel one hour from home to teach. Yeah, all the way to 3:30. 3:30, 1 hour back. 4:30, I go up to the farm, take the family, we go up farm. Sometimes it's just me. 4:30 to 9 o'clock at night, we don't like. Whatever had to get done, I did them for 4 solid years. And I never run out of energy. I never get drained, because I knew that I wasn't going to fail in this kuleana of Aloha Aina and feeding. There was no way it was going to break me. And so after 2014, I decided, you know what, I cannot teach and I cannot do this. But what is more important? Of course, Aina. So I left teaching. I was at, back then was like 50,000 I was getting paid. Okay. I just said, leave them. I was like, I don't need the money. Money gonna come if I need the money. So we were slanging, poi and kulolo for one solid 2 years before the poi company actually started. Yeah. So before we started that endeavor, I had $100, $200 left in my bank account. Yeah, I was riding this bugger all the way. One of my friends was harvesting kalo, and I was like, hey, bro, I buy that thing for you, 1 bag, 100 pounds for $100, $1 a pound. And at the time, $1 a pound wasn't anything anybody was doing at the time. It was like 50 cents a pound. So I told my friend, hey, I like them $1 a pound. So I buy them, we make kulolo, slang them. First week, we get 700. I mean, obviously, you got to pay off all the stuff that all the ingredients and things like that. So we do that. We end up with like $500 one week. I'm like, hey, let's keep going. So 2014 to now, we've never stopped. We've never taken a day off. That's how Aloha Aina Poi Company started. And for me, like, it's very important that people understand it's going to take a lot of work to change society. Because even in that, talking with all the other farmers, how do we, provide more poi to the community? Yeah? And how do we rebuild poi eaters. Not everybody like poi. If we look at the majority of Hawaii, we probably get 10% of Hawaii eating poi or kalo. I talk in the majority. We get, I don't know how much millions we get in Hawaii, but I talk in the majority is they don't eat poi, they don't eat kalo, they don't eat pa'iai or ulu. It's a foreign thing. But to change the landscape is going to take a lot of work. And that is the attempt from what we're doing. Anyways, long story short, we get 22 acres now. We wake up every day. My kids always get kuleana. We get pigs, chickens, 22 acres of farmland that we got a malama. We get one canoe club, we got a malama. There's a lot of aloha aina happening. And I had one friend ask me, what does aloha aina mean to you? And what does it mean to your kids? And I told him, I know we all understand what aloha aina mean. Yeah. Love of land, heavy kuleana. And I told him, I come from a generation where that was introduced to me, reintroduced to me. My kids gonna be the generation where they don't even know what that means because that's how they live. That is their life. And I don't have to explain. They don't have to articulate. Just watch them work, watch them do, and it's every day. But that's kuleana.
Oh, that's so my Kiaʻi. That's such a great message. And I think that's has a big part in why this whole shift happened. Yeah, people started moving away from working the aina, working the lo'i, because it's hard work. I mean, 9 to 12 months till you can huki that thing from the ground and make it into pa'iai, make it into kulolo. That's a lot of work, with your headlamp and all. So I mahalo you. If you guys are ono for kulolo or poi, wherever you are, and you don't have access, Aloha Aina Poi Company, they'll send it to you. They said you guys do how much? 5 pounds at a time, yeah? 5 pounds, 5 pound increments.
Yep, we can ship 5 pounds at a time, straight to your door via FedEx.
Aloha Aina Poi Company, check out their website. They have really awesome stuff. Mahalo kaina. So that brings me to Ka'iu. Throughout the years of working with Ai and Hawaii's communities, were there any moments that were very eye-opening or impactful, and why?
Almost every day. There's always something new and exciting. I just want to say that we visited Kaina's Aina in Kauai, and it was so beautiful and amazing work. We had a great time. And not only that, they made awesome clothes. Like I came back with stuff that we had bought and everyone's like, why didn't you buy me a pair? And I'm like, no, these are mine. But so go to his website. Anyway, I think that, I was thinking about this, and I'm always learning and always shifting and always growing, but a lot of my lessons have come from the keiki that I work with. And, when I was at Kamakau, and we opened Kamakau as a charter school that was based on health, that was our original intent in opening that school. And we took our 3rd graders to Molokai one year. It was me and Kavehi Lucas. And we just happened to be on the plane with John Ka'imikawa, and he was taking a group. And, I knew John through hula. And so he's like, yeah, bring your kids. And, and he went around the island, and, we told us stories about all these places, and the kids were fascinated. And we're staying with Herbert Ho on his Aina, and the kids were, in the water recreating the stories that they had heard. And I just remember thinking to myself that this is, the way to really be teaching all of this is through our stories and our culture. And it really, shaped what I was doing. But we also lay net that night. And the kids got to go out, we went at 9 and I think at 12 and picked up stuff, but we caught like 80 papio that night and the kids the next day, they learned how to clean it. But then they had to make packets for all the kupuna on the island and the various kupuna programs. And they had to, I forget, there was one other place we gave to, and only then after that, then they could dry a little bit to take home. And so, and they were so excited to do all of that. And so really just the kids in the program have taught me a lot. We had another young girl in one of our programs, and her mom was telling me that she had a potluck to go to, and we were always teaching about mana and food and taking care of the aina and all of this. And so anyway, she just had a potluck at school, and she came home and she's telling the mom, can we make something for my potluck? And the mom's like, oh, I worked all day. Can we just go to the store and buy it? She's like, no, Mom, we have to make it. And the mom's like, oh, come on, we'll go to Whole Foods. That's healthy. We can do that. And she's like, no, Mom, we really have to make it. And the mom was like, come on. And then she finally just said, Mom, if we don't make it, it's not going to have our mana inside of it. And the mom said she just tucked her tail between her legs and went, and they got food and they made for everybody because, and so it's in teaching the kids. The other thing is, when I first started at Ho'oluaina, we would get punana leo from down in Kalihi to come up. And we'd let the kids, we'd take them through the garden, and because it's all organic farming, they could taste whatever they want. So we'd be breaking off little pieces of this produce or this or that, and they could taste it all. And then we take them back in, and we were making pai pika and English muffins. So little pizzas on English muffins with all the greens that they had picked in the garden. And, I would have all the teachers and parents saying, oh, my kid's not going to eat any of that. They don't eat vegetables at all. And then we would let them touch it and pick it and taste it and make something. And they ate everything. And, the teachers were always astounded. And so also, just realizing that we don't give our kids the opportunity, that we're shaping them as adults with our own thoughts and our own beliefs. And we have to, and so, how do we get to the family? The other thing that has really shaped the way that I work is that after working in Hawaiian health for a long time, we get our money by saying how poor and how unhealthy and how much we're in the criminal justice system. We get grant money, we get all of this money by telling the story about how bad off we are. And, after a while, I just thought to myself, this is just an unhealthy practice in itself. We can't be competing with each other by trying to say who's the worst off or who's the unhealthiest or who has the highest rates of disease. Yes, we need to pay attention to that, but that story needs to change. We need to stop. If my child that grew up with me, doing all of these lectures, if he heard every time I said that, then he would just be growing up thinking how unhealthy we are. And so how do we change that narrative? And it really shifted the way that I work and I do our programs, and trying to remember that within our kupuna and within our ike from the past, that we have the solutions to move forward, and that we are a resilient people. We have culture, we have all of this that we can pull from to teach our families and to teach the programs that we do and to tell our stories. It's really important that our stories turn around and they are of resilience. They are of, making a difference. And we need to really stop just talking about how bad off we are. And it's a system that we have to change. Even when I'm talking to other organizations and I'm saying, we have to change what they're doing, then they're like, well, but if we go to Washington and we don't tell this poor story, then we don't get the money. So what are we going to do about that? I think about that a lot, and we have to stop. We just have to stop doing that. And that's been a part of what I've been trying to work towards, is to teach people how to cook, to teach them about their food. We do for our Ehola program with the kids, they do imu every year. And I remember one year, my friend Kealoha was teaching them, and they were there when the pig got shot. And the next morning when we cleaned the pig and we put all the organs in the tub, and we went through all the organs and talked about what they did. And then he taught them how to, we burnt off the hair with the hot water. And throughout the day they did different stuff. They made the imu. He gave them all chopsticks, those that wanted to know how to make na'au or loko, and they turned the intestines inside out. And we just spent this day and a half together. And then at the end of the meal that day, when we were asking the families, what did you learn? And it was really about, it's a community, having a community to do these things with and to be healthy with, but also that that it's sacrifice, and that if we don't, if you don't understand what you're eating and what that, went through to get on your plate, then we don't understand food. We've lost that connection. And so trying to really work with families, work with kids, but make those connections that really connect us to who we are and the food system, and just really paying attention to all of these stories and all of the things that the kids say has been an important part of what I'm doing.
Hello, there was two things that really stood out to me that actually everything stood out, but I'm seeing a theme of the pilina, the relationship, having a direct relationship with what they're eating. And these kids grinded the pizza because they helped to make it and they helped to harvest, and through that connection, individual connection, the self with me'ai, we start to build the community, the pilina, with the relationships within the community. And I also love what you said about changing the narrative. That's so powerful. Ika olelo keola, ika olelo kamake. And language, what we say gives us life or it takes the life away, right? So using that, how you referred to always looking back at the past and these traditions and belief and ways of thinking, yeah? And just in that olelo no eao, you went, wait a minute. That's not what our kupuna, taught us to do. So let's huli this and change this narrative. So mahalo for your mana'o. Mahalo nui.
And there's a lot more going on now than, when I first started in nutrition. So I'm really grateful that we've made all this progress, and there's all of the different factions are, but I also still do think that we have a work to do with everything that's coming up with the way that things are on all the islands, and having less and less of a say in some of the regulations and the laws and the access to land. Like there's a lot of things we still got to work for.
Absolutely. So that brings me to Hano. If you could add to that, mana'o, throughout your years of working with Ai and Hawaii's communities, was there any moments that were very eye-opening or impactful for you?
What was coming to my mind when I was listening to you guys speak was the kapu system. When the aikapu was broken, the thing wasn't just about religion. The thing was about our food and these seasons that put rules and boundaries over our resources. So when that went fall, a lot of that went fall also, and that came to my mind because one thing that happened to me along this journey, and kind of seemed like one domino effect. So I'm gonna try to make them fast, but the long line fishermen came to Molokai and went try and fight the community over the Mo'omomi CBSFA, the community-based fishing zoning that we wanted to put. So these are the years between, I think, 2009 or 2008 and on. So Walter told us, we're going down to the Ala Moana Hotel, get a meeting down there. This is during Barack Obama's term. The meeting is about the Western Monument, to the west of Hawaii, the atolls to the west was the first big ocean safe zone for all of these fish, these ahi, these tuna. And we went to this meeting because we were gonna go fight against the longline fishermen because they came to Molokai and made trouble. But I sat in that meeting in the Ala Moana Hotel, surrounded by longline fishermen, captains, their crew, scientists, kumuhula, cultural practitioners, and kids. And as I was listening to all the testimony, I was sickened by the money guys, the long line captains, and their attitude towards, they catch fish for feed everybody, and everybody should feel happy and should be grateful for what they do. But in reality, they just catching fish for make as much money as they can. And they had their crew members in there that looked a lot like me and kind of mākua, and were acting very intimidating towards all the scientists and all of the kids. And so instantly, I knew my part. I'm going to speak for the scientists. They get a hard time putting mana'o in 3 minutes. They're scared, they're mumbling, and they're intimidated. The kids no can say everything they like say because these guys stay acting all scary. So that day I go out and I just deliver as best as I can on how important protecting the fish in the Pacific Ocean is for our future generations. And that all the guys who are fighting for money can wrap their money, wipe their okole with them, and eat them for all I care. I don't care. So that attitude of like what we talked about earlier, like what Kana said, like I'm going all in. I'm going all in. I see our ahi getting in trouble. I'm going all in. And so that attitude that I was going to fight for nature made me be chosen for go lobby for this Western Monument. And I met these guys, the Pew Foundation. When they met this fire, then they started sending me and my wife to different places throughout the Pacific, because all of our cousins in all of these different lands face the same threats, face the same pilikia on their resources. Yeah. And they're scared for fight. They're getting bought, they're getting paid off, they're getting taken out of the equation for our better planning, our better future for our kids. So this series of events led me and Maile down to Rapa Nui, where we had a chance for bring together families, fishing families that never talked to each other for years. Because one side like money, one side like resources, and they're fighting. All of a sudden we came there, came with aloha, told them how important aloha aina is to us. And then you start seeing mending fences, you know, because we coming outside in, but very similar. They was able to catch the fire, grab, and hold on to them. Okay, boom, that place burning. That place get a magical action. We go down to Tahiti, the Austro Islands a little bit more south of Tahiti. They like protect their action, but they get intimidating, coercive Tahitian government trying to force them to do this and that. Oh, we light the fire again. No, we're going to stand for our keiki. We're going to stand for our future. We're going to stand for our ai. We're protecting this. Oh, and then you see their fire catch, you know, all of a sudden we front page, we troublemakers. We're trying to protect areas in the ocean. Damn straight. Damn straight. And I think that being able for to speak what we like say, and speak for the fish that cannot speak for the limu, the papa'i, the crabs, the koa, the coral, and just like the lorax, speak for the trees. You know, if we like put good stuff in our body, we gotta protect them. We gotta malama, we gotta grow them, we gotta protect them, we gotta love them, you know. And for me, I think that was one of the, like when mean traumatic action that would happen, but because like kind of mākua, like anytime you say we don't can do something, or I don't know if you can, the competitor in me and the warrior like prove you wrong, you know. And what I like prove is that aloha wielded, you know, in the most optimal and pono way, can heal the planet. And if we heal the planet, we're going to heal the people. So if we take care of our eye going to take care of us.
Mahalo, mahalo. And you know, that was I'm glad you touched on the point about the ahi and the aku and, you know, the tuna. So that was a big part of, you know, our mission around the Pacific, was that there's 90% of the tuna population on the planet is depleted. 90%. So if you look at where the tuna stands in this food chain, they're pretty important. They're pretty up there. And so once you start wiping out a whole portion of our food chain, you know, it's detrimental. And so this poke bowl craze, in my opinion, needs to stop. I mean, you're getting poke bowls all over the planet, whether they have access to the ocean or not, you know, and so it's, and at whatever cost. And so for a long time, actually, our family stopped eating tuna completely. And, you know, growing up local, we like our tuna salad. We like tuna and everything. Potato salad and sandwich and the egg omelet, whatever, you know. We stopped buying tuna for a very long time. Once in a while, we'll enjoy it, but it's not nearly, even Spam, that's like a once, twice a year thing for our family. We made a huge shift. We both grew up, like how we said, with the canned foods and stuff like that. But once you start to become aware, you know, it's really up to the individuals to start making these little changes. So I'm going to wrap it up, but I wanted to just get a real quick mana'o from each of you guys, because I think this is so important. If somebody came up to you and said, hey, you know, I really want to start building pilina, have a better connection with food, with ai, but, you know, I live in suburban Honolulu, I live in, you know, wherever they might be, in the city or this and that, wherever they might be, what are some recommendations that you can give them, or steps, simple little steps, like how I said, you know, they just want to wet their feet. They just don't know where to begin. Like for us, we never, like I wasn't ma'a, you know, and then once we live off grid and we have to grow our own food and we hunting and we fishing, everything's right there. My whole life changed. My whole life changed once my relationship with ice started. And so it's just gotten stronger and stronger, right? So how would you tell them, this is how you might want to start? Maybe they cannot even grow their own food. What would you say to them? So maybe we can start with Kiaʻi.
I was hoping to go last.
Okay. I'll give it to, who wants to go first?
No, it's okay.
Hano?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's let Hano go.
Okay.
What was the question again?
If somebody said, hey, how do I even make my first steps to get closer connected to food? I don't even know where to begin. I didn't grow up like that. You know, what would you say? What is some steps that they could take? Like for me, I would say, go shop the local farmers markets, or, you know, if just buy local, that would be one recommendation. But what would you say, Hano?
Depending on your situation, if you are in an area where you can catch something for eat, what you catch for eat, take only what you need. If you're in an area where you can gather like pono, again, everything you do, you only take what you need. You take
You
one,
harvest properly,
one.
yeah? And you take them
You
the right
harvest properly. You harvest properly. Okay? That is the most important role of what I'm saying. Is it's overridden by taking properly. So if you can go out in nature and you know, become a fisherman, a hunter, do those kinds of activities, you're gonna start to notice it's not like going to the grocery store. You're gonna have to get more intimate with your environment, practice techniques, you know, and then you have to probably go look into some culture, you know, for be able to go get what you need for eat. That being said, eat whatever you get available close to your place. That's, I think, is the most important thing, you know, like, oh, I like eat like one Hawaiian, but I live, let's say, in New Mexico. Okay, we're not gonna have the same diet. You probably cannot eat exactly like me. You can probably adjust your diet for kind of, you know, similar in whatever you get from that area. But it's just an example. Like, the more we concentrate and look what get around us, you know, if you live in a place where you have a small yard and you can plant your tomatoes, your lettuce, start with that, you know. But I think the key is to first focus on what is near, because that is the way for leave the smallest human footprint on our environment. For stay close to where you stay and look what is in abundance.
Yes.
So like for us on Molokai, maybe people like eat uhu all the time, but you cannot, you know? So because you cannot eat uhu, what else fish get in abundance?
And then
Poalu. Get so poalu.
And then
Hey, ahole, whatever. Whatever get in abundance, then that's what you aiming for also.
and not spawning as well, right?
So there's another point. If you witnessing somebody harvesting during spawning season, you go talk to them real nice first. Okay, and then you tell them how you feel. And then if you have to after that, then you got to go to a different level. But what
in
I'm
the
saying
case of the couple system, yeah, that would happen. Absolutely.
if the couple system was alive, Kike no Kole is on the lightest end of the spectrum. Death is, in some cases, appropriate. It's appropriate. So what I'm getting at, I'm not promoting violence. I am promoting one adherence to the old rules. Because if we adhere to those rules, then at some point in our near future, we're going to have plenty. We're going to have plenty.
Yeah, so Hano often says, I love nature more than people. And it's very evident tonight. And that's what gives him his vivo'ole, or that fearlessness to say, I'm going to speak for the trees. I'm going to speak for the things that cannot speak for themselves. So mahalo hano. I guess I'll ask Kaina to add to that as we close up the evening. We have about 8 minutes left. If you can add some mana'o to, what would your advice be, Kaina?
I would probably just follow what Hano said. And the only thing I would change is if it's anywhere in the world, and I've said this before on another interview that I had, but places like what we have at our farm is really starting to really blossom all over the world. If you can somehow do your research, because everybody get, internet now on your phone and everything, you can find a place, a farm, somewhere that they're teaching community how to be food secure, how to build food security. I would just say, do your research and find somebody. Because, everybody on the internet now, Hano, been on it since 2002. So,
right. There are resources to learn and to find out. Yes, mahalo.
And also, YouTube University, it helps.
Yeah. So true.
If you're living in a concrete jungle, you can find people farming on the concrete.
Yes, mahalo for that. So that brings us to Kiaʻi.
So One of the things that I've been talking a lot about is really the spectrum of a food system and what makes a healthy food system. And so you can teach a child to fish. You can buy fish from your local fisherman. You can buy it from a supermarket. You can buy something from across the world. You can buy a fish burger from McDonald's. Or the same thing with planting. You can teach a child to plant. You can go to a farmer's market. You can buy food from your grocery, frozen food. All of those kind of things. You can, just not teach your child how to cook and make foods, or you can make the food for them. So we have this spectrum of our food system. And if we really want to be a healthy food system, then we want to be choosing on this far right, where we're doing all of these things, but it's just not possible on an everyday basis. And what I'd like to tell people is that if you think about that spectrum and what are all the possibilities and what is the healthiest of the food system, the more we shift the dial and we choose on this end of the food spectrum, so we're getting as close to local and things that are healthy for the land and that we're doing ourselves and not depending on the outside world, is the healthier food system that we're going to build. And with that in mind, the three things that, the messages that we give all the time are to plant something. It might have to be just some herbs on the kitchen window, but start planting, start cooking. We'd like to get people interested in food by teaching them how to cook, and especially kids. Our families are growing up eating so many meals out that I really enjoy working with kids and teaching them how to cook. We do cooking lessons every month with our kids. And the other message that we're really firm in is traditional foods are best. So no matter what culture or ethnicity you are from, if you look back generations to your kupuna, you're going to find the foods that are healthiest for you, and how you incorporate those into your day-to-day life is something that's going to help to make you healthier. So choose on the good end of the spectrum of the food system, cook, plant, and remember the foods of your kupuna.
Beautiful way to wrap it up, Kiaʻi. Now I know why you wanted to go last. She's like, oh, I got a lot to say. That was spot on. Oh, you guys hit all the different parts of the spectrum. But again, I wanted to mahalo nui a oko apau for hanging out with us tonight on our Hānai Kia'i Roundtable, where we discussed Kuʻuna, or eating traditions in Hawaii, not just Hawaiian traditions of eating, but of all of those that we've grown up with, both good and bad, right? And how do we navigate through the rest of life to align ourselves with a more pono way of nourishing ourselves, nourishing our families, nourishing our communities, both in mind, body, spirit, emotions, all of those things that we talked about tonight. So mahalo nui again. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to see you guys in real life. Well, I just saw Kiaʻi, but I hope to see you soon. That was so wonderful to see you, Kiaʻi. But malama pono, a hui ho kako.
Yo, mahalo.
Mahalo, a hui ho.
Love you guys. Love you guys.